That's better. Hi everyone.
Hi.
Enjoying the heat. Heat.
I love
So we made it to a special end of Duncan Cutter Sutra. Who's had some strange occurrences in the last 6 weeks? Yeah. Yeah. So tonight's class is 9 and 10, which I'll do as almost as part of a review of the entire course. So I want to just get in your mind and in mind what it was that we listened to and what was it that was spoken on the planet. What's it supposed to do to your mind, and what's it supposed to do to your continuum, to the continuum of your mind. You're not the same person you were when you landed on the planet. You're not the same person that you were 10 years ago. You're not the same person you were a year ago. Some of you aren't the same people you were a week ago. And you're not going to be the same. But what are you going to become? And what you become, and how you perceive yourself, and what you think of yourself as, is completely and utterly dependent on your understanding of what's happening to you on this planet. And I hope that by the end of today, craft something that will give you a seed to see yourself as possible to get enlightened, truly free from suffering, and capable of helping other people do the same. It's possible. Otherwise, we're just talking blah. And I don't think we're talking blah blah. I don't think all the beings who see the paintings here, and all the beings in between them and us, for thousands of years, we're talking blah blah. I think there will be miracles between now and then. I think people transform between now and then. And people will see your faces and the faces of these things if you allow the seeds of what's happening in these words take heart. So with the purest motivation, which asks for teachings.
Sashi Pukir Jishin Metotra Iran Shir Yambadi Sangha Shindu Nitevargi Brokunanda Shinatipasho Viranguru Ratnamandara Kanyatayani Sanghe Chidran Sokir Shaknama Janshu Bardu Dagni Gapsuchi Daki Jinyen Gipe Sonamki Rola Benchir Sanghe Drupasho Sanghe Chiran Soki Choknama Janshu Bardu Dagni Gapsuchi Daki Jinyen Gipe Sonamki Rola Benchir Sanghe Drupasho Sanghe Chiran Soki Choknama Janchu Bardu Daki Kyatsuchi Daki Jinyen Gipe Sonamki Rola Benchir Sanghe Drupasho.
So take a comfortable seated position. We'll do a quick reset of your minds. Phones off. Sound off. Take a nice deep breath and relax your body, scan your body for any tension and just let it go. For the next few minutes you are free. Free from your body, sounds, taste, touch, or sights, or thoughts. And just as if you were a third party, observe your breath as it enters and exits this body. Gently at first, just watch it and feel it. If your mind gets distracted, just gently bring it back to the breath moving through the nostrils. Press your mind a little tighter on the breath until your mind and the breath are almost one. Really hone in on the sensation of the breath exiting the tip of the nostril. If you've done this before, see if you can do it a little better. And the kind of peace or relaxation you find when you get more and more subtle with your breath, see if you can find in that peace a call to your Lama, your teacher, the most perfect being you can imagine. And in all their qualities, ask them to please come, and before you finish asking, they appear in front of you. Just you and them. Feel their presence like a gravity calling you. See if you can get a sense of the heat from their body in front of you, or a scent. But feel protected when they are here. When you call, they come. Think of the most highest quality you perceive in them. Be happy that you can perceive it and they possess it. Offer them the most exquisite thing you can think of, real or imaginary, just a perfect thing. Offer it to them for being with you. Imagine how a mind like them would perceive your offering and your motivation. Everything imbued with bliss. considering how perfect their minds are. Reflect on the storehouse of karma, the impulses inside of you, in the storehouse of your mind, of every action that has not yet ripened into a result inside of you, carried in your continuum. See the dark ones and the light ones and the in-between ones. Wish deeply to be removing any obstructions, all the dark ones, may they be removed, and as an entire collection, ask your Lama and your teacher to please help you clean them through wisdom. Really ask them from your heart that they can show you how to clean them truly. That you no longer have to perceive any suffering, any change. Then looking at the same storehouse, ask your Lama to help you make them even more pure until they result into a mind that perceives itself not having any mental afflictions, that perceives itself understanding all things, and that perception is a truth and a reality. Ask that purity be pushed out to any subtle perception of other beings suffering, and that you may turn those karmas into perceiving yourself freeing those beings from suffering with certainty and finality. You, what your teacher or your Lama begin to radiate with the intense power of their karmic storehouse. Ask them to please stay, and they rise up and turn to face the same direction you're facing, glowing golden just at the crown of your head, getting smaller and smaller until they are just so bright that the darkness can stand it. Keep them there if you can for the entirety of the class. When you're ready, you can put them else. Any questions from last week? Good. Questions from last week? I couldn't even remember what we taught last week when I was reviewing class this morning. I'm like, really? We did that? Okay.
Buddhism.
We talked about like how you're going to have things happen to you.
The 6 things.
Purifying, bad karma. Based on Buddha's own kind of Sutra, where you're going to suffer.
That's right, the suffering.
Great suffering.
But let's start the class with something like that. Let's start the class with What's in your heart about the Dhammakaya Sutra to date? Like if you ran into His Holiness the Dalai Lama was in his office, it was amazing.
How was it today?
Today you were in so lost.
Yeah, 3 hours.
Good, 3 hours. Nice. You're in? Good. Excellent. So I was there with the representative to His Holiness, and then he just met Holy B with Geshe Tashi Goje. And I was scared that he was going to ask me all the details of what we were teaching, because I can only remember them for a day, so I teach it and I review. And then something sticks and something I carry as a practice. But if you ask me to scholastically vomit out all the words, I probably can't. I can give you my interpretation of the 6 perfections, the 5 paths, the principal parts, the laws of karma, all the things we taught. I can give you, but I'll probably get it wrong. See if someone like that asks me. So let's review and see if someone asked you. Like last time.
He asked me today about the all-pervasive suffering.
He asked you
And he was
about
like, so tell me about all-pervasive suffering. No idea. But then he explained.
the 3 sufferings are
Suffering of suffering, suffering of change.
and all pervasive suffering. Okay, so
What's the last?
all pervasive suffering. So it's the condition that we're doing this thing. Yeah. So suffering of suffering is just the expert. You really cut yourself. Punch you, you hurt, unless you laugh. Congratulations. And suffering of change is that even the things we want and we get them, they disappear later. And even the things that we don't want, they come, and so things change. We get old, we get sick. So that's interesting. So let's see. Tell me the name. So we're going to do the review, okay, for the first hour or so, and then we're going to go straight into the lung, which is the verbal transmission of the sounds I heard from my holy teacher when he recited the Dhammakaya Sutra in the summer of 1997 in Vajrapur Institute in California. So then, for those of you that want to stay for that, you can turn down the lights. You should go into some kind of state of meditation. Go toilet break first because it's a little long, and then just hear the unbroken lineage from the Buddha to today of student teacher receiving the sounds through lips, air, and ear on this earth of these words and the meanings. And you should, if you studied some of this stuff, watch your karmas create constructs on these words and keywords, because we've studied and we've brought to the surface the meaning of them. It's a beautiful thing. So, what are we studying? Dhammakaya Sutra, named in Sanskrit. What's diamond in Sanskrit?
Vajra.
Chedika. Good. And in Tibetan? Dorje Chupa. Good. What year was it written?
1997.
86.
Good, trick question.
500 BC.
Yeah, good. It was spoken then, but it was probably written down. There were 3 councils of the Buddhist students who got together and said, I can't remember. Oh, I can remember what he said. We better write them down for future generations. So the practice of chanting and reciting the words that you heard.
500 BC was when the first book. First book in China.
The 500 BC was the time of Buddha. So this,
500.
yeah,
25.
oh,
I think
25.
500 BC
2,500 years
was
ago.
when it was printed, and it was the first book in China.
That was 300 BC. It was
It wasn't BC, the first printed book. It's the first printed book ever in the world, and it was printed in China. It was the Diamond Sutra, actually. It was called something exists.
Let me change it, because I think that the actual writings of what Buddha said actually didn't come to the public until 300 years ago.
Later, right? Yeah, exactly. No. So 500 BC, 2,500 years ago, it's just when the Buddha was around. I think it was 800 AD that the first printed book appeared.
Yeah, 750 AD.
Oh, we're
That's
talking about
Kamala Shila.
that's Kamala Shila's commentary, but I'm talking about the Diamond Kara, the Dorje Chupa. If someone's got internet, you can check. I'm pretty sure the first printed copy was found around 800 AD, but it was written down way before that. It was written down on the Third Council or something. So describe the meaning of the word diamond in the title. Why diamond? And I know that we've said this 1,000 times, but if you remember it, speak it up, we can move on quickly to the next one. Yeah.
It's the most ultimate physical substance in the universe.
Okay.
So
So
the hardest.
yeah, give me the three qualities.
Right. It's the hardest substance in the universe. It can only be cut by another diamond, and when you break off a piece of the diamond, it has the same qualities as the other piece.
So why is that a title of the Prajna Paramita, which is the perfection of wisdom? Why has diamond got anything to do with the perfection of wisdom? What is the perfection of wisdom?
Teaching on emptiness.
It's a teaching on emptiness, okay? Wisdom, emptiness. So what's diamond got to do with it? So it's high, clear,
As
so
you can see clearly without distortion.
It's a metaphor for the ultimate nature of reality.
okay. So just like emptiness is the most ultimate of all things, it's a nothing, but it's the most ultimate of all conceptions. A diamond is in the world we live in, the relative world, the highest thing we can find. And the reason you see the Dorje, the double thing, the reason they look like that is because at the time of the Buddha, they couldn't cut diamonds like we cut diamonds into perfect little shiny things out. They were real diamonds. They were like unpolished diamonds. So that's why we have the Dorje like that. So it is closest to ultimate. It is clear, like you said, so it's so perfectly clear that it's everywhere around us, like every item, like everything around us has emptiness, but we can't see it. It's completely transparent to us, it eludes us, we can't see it. So that's why that part of the metaphor, and ultimately, when you break one aspect of the diamond, all aspects of diamonds are exactly the same molecularly, meaning every instance of emptiness is exactly the same as every other instance of emptiness, insofar as that it's completely void of self-existence. Yeah, meaning the wall, the fan, the idea, the thought, the breath, the life, the breathing, anything you conceive of has no nature from its own side. There's nothing in everything that has a nature from its own side. And the entire sutra is to highlight that to us in all sorts of different ways. It's to say, whatever you place your mind on, that also doesn't have a nature from its own side. That is empty. It's everywhere. And every single emptiness is exactly the same as every other emptiness, insofar as there's nothing there like you thought there was. And today we're going to talk about, well, what is there? Yeah, how come things seem to work and pretend to work? So that's good. Thanks for that. Why is it important to include the word kata in the title? This should be easy.
Because
You're right.
the concept of emptiness is so much stronger than anything material that we can
Even the most ultimate thing. So even the closest metaphor is so far away that conceptually understanding, the knowing of emptiness smashes that metaphor completely. The direct experience of emptiness smashes that completely. Awesome. So describe the object that we deny when we speak of emptiness. I said gave you intrinsic existence. Give me another explanation that you would teach your mom.
Gacha, or
Yeah, the gacha is the Sanskrit
self-existent.
thing, the thing we deny, right? The gacha is self-existent. You describe it to me as if I was learning. Sorry. What's the gotcha?
What's the thing that we deny?
Yeah.
That things arise dependently, which means that they exude their qualities from themselves. And in
The
fact,
second part is right. The first part, no.
okay,
Yeah, but that's great. The second part is right. That
they have those qualities in themselves. That flower has the color and the smell and the niceness or the not niceness inside.
no, that's good. Anyone else want to add to that? That's what we're denying. We're denying that anything has a nature from its own side, exuding from it, over there, separate to, and now we can get to the 4 schools and the reviews of the 4 schools. Just as an aside.
Can we say also that there is a reality that exists separate from our perception?
We can't say that.
Really?
We can't. How can we say that? As soon as you conceive of a reality that's separate to your perception, you've conceived it. Yeah. So, is there something there? That's another story. Yeah. Is there something there? Is there data out there? Yeah.
There appears to be.
Yeah. There appears to be. Yeah. But as soon as you conceive, you conceive. It can't be separate from your perception. Yeah.
If you can differentiate between nominal and ultimate, isn't that perceiving 2 different realities?
Yeah, but we're only doing that intellectually.
Are the 2 realities real?
Well, what he's asking is that does emptiness have a fixed nature of its own?
Right.
And the answer is that emptiness is
It's
empty as well
empty.
too. So it goes down.
Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're asking? Is it emptiness or emptiness?
That's the implication.
Yeah. I guess I'm asking: is there like, if you experience emptiness directly,
Yeah.
do you then see you have 2 visions? You see everything as bliss, or you see everything as we see it now, or is everything then become just that one reality where everything is empty and you only see it as that, you don't see it the whole way?
So there's 2 answers to that question, depending on where along the path you are. Okay? Or 3 answers.
Yes and no.
So, so someone want to help?
Yeah.
So there's 3 answers, depending on where about.
When you first come out of seeing emptiness directly, the old way of seeing returns, but you don't believe it the same way. And then when you become a Buddha, you see both at the same time, supposedly. Supposedly, yes. You can perceive the ultimate nature and the relative nature of everything in the universe at the same time.
Right. Is that what you were asking?
Kind of. Yeah.
Good.
Well,
I thought that's what she was.
I think she was trying to find self-existent stuff that was there, but she turned her back. So, yeah. And I didn't think that was findable. Yeah. So, without conceiving of it. So it's good you're grabbing onto ideas. The thing is, how do we use them, right? Every day. So okay, these are good intellectual ideas. How possible are they, and how can you walk this earth, or be perceived to be walking this earth, like Lord Buddha did, and have these experiences in your mind, and how can you help you as you do that? So let's fast forward all the way to the 5th path and talk to me about the 4 bodies of the Buddha. How to take 3.
Dharmakaya.
What's the Dharmakaya? Well, actually split them into 2 simple things that are very similar to the way you are.
Mind and body.
So the mind and the physical. Good? So what's the physical part? Yeah? Kaya. That has how many? And don't give me the Sanskrit words, just give me any words. The 2 types of Rupakaya.
It's the enjoyment body and the emanation body.
Good. Enjoyment body and emanation body.
to be honest, I'm still not sure about the difference between the enjoyment body and
Okay. Let's talk about it. Good. That's what I want. So Nirmanakaya is the emanation body, right?
Nirmanakaya.
Nirmanakaya. And Sambhogakaya is the enjoyment body. Yeah. This is why I think about it. The enjoyment body is the body that the enlightened being perceives themselves to have, the body of beauty and light and etc. in Okmin or their Buddha paradise. Yeah? this is what they're enjoying. Yeah, like I'm enjoying myself.
On trees.
I'm in my body. Yeah, and in that place, who can perceive such a beautiful form other than beings that have the karma to perceive an enlightened being's body? So high bodhisattvas hang around, and it's like Bushwick but for Buddhists. Yeah, like just all the cool people that hang around. And the enlightened being.
So gross.
Bodhisattvas around Buddha, all who have so much great karma that they can perceive that. Anyone without that just can't see that body, can't see that place, can't see that reality. So that's the enjoyment body, the one that the Buddha himself perceives in his paradise. The emanation body then is
When he sends out the help.
what it sends out to help, like the moon reflecting on the thing. So he's emanating in places where there's enough karma to perceive him.
The word enjoyment body strikes me really funny, which is maybe because I haven't been here for a while. But I guess there's two concepts that are clashing a little bit, which is the idea that the Buddha is not complete, so everybody is enlightened. And doesn't that put a chink in the armor?
So that we
Doesn't that sort of like that? I'm just trying to wrap my head around the idea of enjoyment when it is just like enlightened being enjoying its own enlightenedness, and yet so much is not yet enlightened, although I guess he is out of time.
It's a hard question, okay? So it's a hard question for all time and for all debaters. Like, but there's an answer, and let's imagine that we're at a party and it's lovely, yeah, and everybody's really enjoying themselves at the party.
In Bushwick.
Yeah, in Bushwick. Where else? The real Brooklyn. Yeah. And then there's a couple of people at the party who are just grumpy and annoyed because they're from Williamsburg and they don't get to have as much enjoyment as everybody else. Is the enjoyment of the people enjoying themselves not true? Are they experiencing enjoyment?
Yes.
Yeah, are they experiencing happiness? Yes. Yeah, good. And so the people who are suffering, who are annoyed, yeah, are still in the presence of these people having fun or enjoying themselves. But are they enjoying themselves? No. Okay. What's the perception? What would the perception be of the person who's enjoying themselves, or the person that could be enjoying themselves but just can't get past their Williamsburgness?
What would be the perception?
Yeah. Would I be suffering if I was an enjoyment person and perceiving someone that really could get over their Williamsburgness if they tried? And I'm not suggesting that's what the Buddhists are thinking about us.
I would put a damper on the party.
Mhm.
I would put a damper on the.
Well, it depends not if I maintain my enjoyment. You see, if I was truly enjoying myself with my group of people and there were 2 or 3 people not, I could have some kind of compassion for them going, if we move to Bushwick, you'd be really happy. So maybe I can help you figure out how you can make Williamsburg a little more Bushwicky. Yeah? It's just bizarre that I'm talking this way. So I just got stuck on a metaphor and then I followed it through.
It's good.
You know, but I do perceive that they are perceiving themselves suffering, but I see no reason for them to suffer. That's the closest I can give you it. Because it bothers me as well. It's bothered me for all time. As long as time remains and everybody gets free from suffering, how can you call yourself perfectly enlightened?
I think Lama Murd has a nice answer to this, one of the other teachers in the lineage, because he talks about if you're a being who's trying to help people, where and you get enjoyment from helping people, where would you want to be? In a place where everyone's already blissful, or would you want to be in a place where people are suffering so that you can help them?
Yeah, yeah. So the emanation body would go to Williamsburg and help. The enjoyment body would hang around all those people that want to figure out and have enough perception to understand, oh, let me figure out how to get happy. That's it.
And then you move to Greenpoint.
And then you grow up.
There's no transportation. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Hector,
So
not,
true.
not one Miku, the body that has stopped making karma with, what is that because he passed?
You're talking about Rupakaya or Dhammakaya?
No, Dhammakaya.
The-
It says not one Miku, the body that has stopped.
Oh, the
making karma.
Sambhavakaya, the essence body. Yeah, is that what you're talking about? There's also the Jnana, I can't say it, the Jnana Dharmakaya. So the Dharmakaya has two. It is the emptiness of the Buddha's mind and the fact that all three things are in, all three other bodies are empty. I think that's too complicated for a short discussion on the Dharmakaya Sutra, and I want to get to the thing. What's your question?
How he stopped making karma.
It's a whole nother class.
Yeah, sorry.
Didn't we have a whole class on the bodies?
We did on the bodies, but we didn't ever talk about him stopping making karma. Does the Buddha
Yeah, we
have-
talked about it last week.
What did we talk about?
I asked the same question. I think it was
Go
the
on.
same question. It was you were saying black and white karmas, right? And he doesn't stop producing karma; he stops
Correct.
the negative karmas, and he's only experiencing white karma.
Correct. So I'm saying at what point?
It was stopping of ignorance. Yes,
The essence body?
The stopping of ignorance, yeah,
Ignorance.
which is
Because it's emptiness, so
Sorry,
you don't have mental
afflictions
so you
appearing.
stop.
Yeah, but she's talking about the Dharmakaya.
Yeah, the essence.
But then you would still have to be experiencing something, and you have to label that as karma. So it'd have to be only good things being produced, which would be labeled as white karma. Am I?
Here's
Isn't
what
it
I
considered merit?
Here's what I know. What I know is that at no, when the scriptures talk about karma, they never talk about the Buddhas having karma. Yeah. So when we talk about karma, we talk about karma that is colored black and white, that has ignorance attached to it. When we stop ignorance, which is when
The eighth Bhumi?
the eighth bodhisattva bhumi, you stop experiencing mental afflictions because you've smashed the karma that lets you perceive yourself as having self-existence, anything. Yeah? When you see emptiness directly, you see that things are caused because you have ignorance, and you begin to clean out the karmas until the eighth bodhisattva bhumi. So first bodhisattva bhumi, you see emptiness directly, you understand the nature of all things, you become not a soso-keo, but a jhata, a realized being that by no means means that you are all of a sudden free from mental afflictions. You will continue to have mental afflictions all the way up to the eighth bodhisattva bhumi, where you remove the seed for ignorance and perceiving yourself as having mental afflictions. At that stage, you could say that there are pure karmas, but not that there are no karmas. Yeah, but then they don't talk about Buddhas as having karmas, which makes it very difficult for us to talk about.
Does an emanation have karma?
I think the way that the Majjhimikas Prasanghikas, or in general, would like to say is that they pretend to live out the karmas of being born and growing old and trying some weird paths and coming to a realization and sitting under a bodhi tree. They'll pretend to go through that for the sake of those that need to understand. So we would figure out how to, we would pretend that, we understand what the Williamsburg people do, and why it's terrible, and I agree it's terrible, but then eventually we're just pretending.
Like a dream. Like a dream.
I really, if you think about it, there's a group, like we have collective karma right now to be in this room, or to be in New York, or to be humans. So we share this collection, and so we nominally have sameness about things. We call these flowers, we call each other people. We share these impulses to see data that doesn't have a nature from its own side in a certain way. Other people don't share, they don't speak the same language, they can walk into the room, see a completely different experience, and then animals less still. The emanation body of a Buddha is really brought about by the production of the beings around them with collective enough karma to perceive that there's such a thing. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah? Is there a self-existent emanation body separate from the beings who collectively observe an emanation body? No? So let's take it then from the point of the Buddha. Or is there an emanation body separate from the Buddha perceiving himself emanating wherever beings meet him? No. Right? So depending on where you see it, it's just the ripening of the virtuous karma.
Like the moon is what.
Like the moon, yeah. So to have a perception, to have enough karma, have enough virtue in your karma that's perfected to the point where upon you perceiving that there's a single being that needs instruction to be freed from suffering, you appear. That's the karma of a Buddha perceiving himself emanating. Does that make sense? I get your point about the enjoyment body. You know, it's a weird term to, yeah. I think it implies that he's got great karma. So let's talk about the future of the teachings. At some point, Subhuti asked the Buddha, this is a great sutra, there's all this profound information in here. You've helped many bodhisattvas figure out how to live and think and so on. What will happen to these teachings in the age of the last 500? Yeah. So give me a summary of what you remember about the last 500 and what happens to these teachings.
They're preserved as long as someone keeps practicing.
Okay. Give me what's the Dharma that gets preserved? Give me 2 forms of that.
Realizations and the writings.
Good. The written material and then the realization of these concepts in people's hearts, like us. Yeah? That we actually have some intellectual understanding of what these things mean to whatever level we have. That's in our hearts. We got them from some writings. So the Buddha himself predicted that this is a produced thing. This is also under the laws of this planet, which has this barley seed effect. Things are produced, they're caused. You can have the 4 schools explaining how causation, they are dependently arising. Yeah. Then they grow, they usually expand and whatever, and then they take some time to taper down and then die off. Everything on this samsaric plane does that, including his teachings. So he taught that, and then he taught that his teachings will go through the same thing. There will come a time when there's no person that gets it and no books. Yeah? So what dies first? The realizations. Yeah? So then we have books with funny scribbles in libraries or future libraries, and they think it's a cool book because it's dusty or mystical, but they've got, unlike you in the room, they've got no conception of what these words mean. When you read emptiness, when you read dependent origination, you have a correct understanding of what was intended. Already that's rare. In this room, we have it. In all of America, we have it. In all of the world, we have it. So how do I know that the last 500s haven't come yet? Remember I told you of all these sutras? People were arguing, oh, the last 500 means this, and the last 500 means that. Can you remember any of the dates or of the sutras or the commentaries that talked about this?
Yeah.
She keeps good notes.
Okay. First, there's 500 years is the Golden Dharma.
Oh, you went straight to Lama Tony Lama's explanation. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So he said there would be how many periods of 500?
500 years of Dharma. It's going to be. it's 500 years after Buddha dies, it's the golden era, and 1500 years is like the shadow. And the Sutra of Avalingla, is that right?
Let me check for you.
Anjulimala.
Anjulimala. Oh, remember I talked about Angulimala?
It says,
Yeah.
and that's 1,000 years, it says. And the essence of the Lotus Sutra,
Yeah.
Vimala, Parva, the Sutra of the Goddess
So it's
of
about
flawless
2,000
grace,
years.
is 2,500.
Oh,
Vajra Bandhu, Shila, and some say 5,000.
okay. So what was the summary from Johnny Lama, the guy whose commentary we're reading? He said, there's that sutra that says 2,000, another sutra says 1,500, another sutra says 500, and then there was this other sutra that said 2,500 years after the Buddha's passing, there will come a time where the Dharma will leave this land and go to the land of the rosy-cheeked people. Do you remember that? Yeah? And then it will stay and grow there for another 2,500 years. Yeah? And then he describes that's 5,000 years, right? In that sutra. It's also spoken by the Buddha. And then the commentary talks about how that's divided into 10 periods of 500. So for the first 500, everybody's becoming enlightened. Yeah, everybody's reaching nirvana. And then the next 500, something less is happening. And then the next 500 is, remember the Tripitaka? Remember the three?
Stream enterers.
Yeah, stream enterers. And then people who perfected wisdom, people who perfected meditation, people who perfected, etc. So over the 5,000 years from the time that the Buddha passed up until Dharma is finished, it will go through this slow tapering off, growing and tapering off, where everybody's getting enlightened, less and less people are getting enlightened, less and less people are getting enlightened, very few people get enlightened, very few people understand, very few people can meditate, very few people can put the conditions. It's just books. No one keeps books.
How could that be that so many people were enlightened? Wouldn't they stay enlightened? Why would it taper off like that? Doesn't make sense.
Good question. Where are they enlightened?
Through their own perception.
So who's perceiving them to be enlightened?
They are. And those that are enlightened.
Good. So they're all having enjoyment parties in Williamsburg. In Bush
Green
point. Green point to be in the future. So you say if there's all these beings who are enlightened, if there are all these Buddhas, how can it be that it keeps tapering off?
Yeah, if there's like 3/5 of the world is enlightened, let's just shoot for that goal.
Yeah, that's good.
Then how is it that it would become 2/5 and 1/5 and 1/10 of a fifth and whatever?
So the Buddha said that everything caused must die out. Yeah? And the teachings here, of course, that produce the understandings move. Get understanding, you do something moves. Is this the only planet in the entirety of all the universes?
I don't know, I don't read books.
Huh?
I said, I don't know, I don't read books.
Ah, okay.
As far as I know, no.
Okay. Just conceive of, other. If there's so many living creatures crawling all over this place, and the place we're floating on seems so immense, just logically, if 1,000 of the planets would have life. So the Abhidhamma Kosha, there was a class that I went really quickly that started describing the number of planets and the number of planets, because the Buddha was trying to say to Subhuti, you feel all that, consider all the living beings. Do you remember the first few lines? How should a bodhisattva think? How should they act? Yeah, what should they do? And the Buddha says, you must think of every living being, including everyone born from an egg, born from moisture, born from womb, with conception, with no conception. Yeah, everyone you can see, everyone you can't see. And in that description, I went through to the Abhidharma that described world systems and how world systems come and go into being. The Buddha described that this place supernova, but beings don't just stay here. So yes, there might be innumerable number of Buddhas attending to an innumerable number of worlds. Those innumerable number of Buddhas are fully available and accessible to who?
Those that perceive them.
those that have the karma to perceive it. So it's possible that there's that just behind that wall, it's packed with Buddhists, or even in this very room, that it's packed with Buddhists. And the limit of my karma is forcing me to see things as normal. Because I haven't broken the cycle of cause and effect. Yeah, I haven't wiped out the ignorance that forces me to see things as normal and breaking them. But when I do, all these living beings can appear to be truly Buddhas. And I would be in some kind of enjoyment. So that's completely possible. That's the only reason it's possible is because things are empty. If things were fixed, it would be impossible. If things were fixed and the way they would be not changing. And
I just don't understand what's the information that leads to saying that people will. I mean, that's obviously like a prophecy or something. What is the? If there are innumerable possible Buddhists in this room that we can perceive, how is it that there will be? If we can't count them and know how many there are, how can we say that there'll be less? Or enlightened beings that can perceive? Does that make sense?
sort of. No, I like your question. It's a little digressing because I want to get to some other points, but I like your question.
I can come to Bushwick where everyone's enlightened and talk to you about it there.
No. I think it's worth to discuss it outside the realm of what you're taught and listen to it. Once you've started a sequence in this world of causality, once you've planted enough seeds, you will have trees come up. And as the trees are working in that forest and seeding and so on, you can't say that I changed my mind, I wished I had planted, or somewhere down there I've also planted marigolds. You're in the middle of a forest and you're seeing the results of what you've planted. Halfway through living in that forest, you're like, I don't like this forest. I now want to see all the marigolds. We actually have to chop down the forest, let those conditions finish that have come into play. I don't know if that answers this. Okay, so the bottom line there is that according to the Buddha, the teachings would stay on this planet, before it goes through its cycle, like a seed, like a forest, for 5,000 years. The second 2,500 years are in the land of the rosy-cheeked people. Yep. And I didn't make that up, and that's not. I really like that it says that. Yeah. Because when were it not for the horrible things that happen in Tibet, were it not for that, for us to actually get Dharma spread right throughout the world, we wouldn't be sitting here. The keepers of these ideas in the East gradually got out from India and then it went everywhere else, and it changed a little as it moved throughout Asia, and it stays pure in the frozen lands of Tibet. But now they're unlocked and everybody has access to these things. But the double-edged sword of that is that we also have access to misinformation about these things. Yeah.
Unless you have good karma to hear the difference.
Well, unless you have perfect karma to hear the difference, absolutely, yeah. Once you get the beginning of it, once you build some virtue, you will have more and more karma to perceive the right nature of the teachings. How does Kamala Shila explain the idea of a self, a being, a life, and a person? You hear when we do the sutra that repeated over and over and over. A self, a person, a being, and a life. A self, a person, a being, and a life. Remember that? The expression of self. When they say self, what are they talking about?
Isn't self me and mine?
Yeah, self is me, mine is being, living being. Yeah. So, great. Excellent. So,
What did you just say?
I don't know how to say it, because I was going to say it's the idea that you have a soul, which is inherent, that's no control. I
That's good. Remember you remember Maitreya's shortened Wheel of Life where he says why people are stuck in samsara? The 6 courses of that. Remember that?
Yeah.
We're born
With ignorance.
with ignorance from previous lives of bhakti. Yeah?
2 tendencies.
With 2 tendencies. For
Me and mine.
see things as me and mine, me and mine, me. That produces in you two like and dislike. Yeah, have a flavor of I like that one, I like that one. Yeah, which forces you to ignorantly like and dislike. Yeah. So you're attracted and unattracted, and then it forces you to ignorantly like and dislike because you see things as me and mine, me and mine, me and mine. Yeah. Based on that, you act on it, which means you collect impure karma because you're acting against things that don't exist. You're acting towards self-existence, which isn't a thing. It's not the matrix. You're producing actions, perceptual recordings that force a perceptual experience based on things that aren't real. Therefore, you have a broken world. You must have the result of a broken world, which means you're stuck in this cycle. So they're the 6 from Maitreya. So the me and mine, when you hear in the Sutra the Buddha say a self, a person, a being, and a life, they're referring to that. And if you didn't have teachings, if we didn't have Holy Geshe Michael travel to India, have half his family die, which forced him to go and seek wisdom, and then Ten Rinpoche, who was forced out of the monastery with artillery bombing the library and pushed out of Tibet going to India, and the Dalai Lama sent him to New Jersey of all bloody places. And if we didn't have that, and Trijang Rinpoche, who taught the Dalai Lama and taught Ken Rinpoche, also escape and try and proceed. If we didn't have that, you wouldn't know these. You see how it is possible for these things to die off in the world. Yeah. So just be aware of that when you hear it. So we're up to class 5. Explain the 3 elements. If we talk about the 6 perfections, do you remember the 6 perfections?
Generosity.
Giving, generosity,
Ethics.
ethics, patience,
Joyful.
joyful effort.
Concentration. No.
Yeah, concentration on meditation. Yeah.
Concentration. That was the 6.
Yeah.
Oh, wisdom.
Good. So whenever they use the idea of giving here in this sutra, they are implying all the other perfections too. Okay? So whatever applies to the perfection of giving also applies to all the other perfections. And the perfections are important because if, like me, you're a little bit samsaric retarded, meaning you can't get these things fully in you, and so you have to memorize a little bit to do, just do the 6 perfections, then some goodness will come, and be enough to let you understand the rest. So it's like a condensed, it's like a lam-rim in action almost. Yeah, so whenever they give you an example, like we're about to hear about, give me the 3 spheres of, talk about emptiness of the 3 spheres in the act of giving, it also applies to any act of morality, any act of patience, any act of joyful effort, any act of meditation, any act of wisdom itself, which gets meta there. Right? So give me the 3 spheres for the act of giving.
The object, subject, and the interaction.
That's all it means. Yeah. So there is an end. So whenever and we'll talk about that when we talk about this class today, that class 9, I think, how empty things work. Yeah. So the fact that I give you something is that I am empty of having any self-nature as Hector, the way I see Hector right now. That's not. There is no Hector like I see Hector. That's all that means. Which means also I could be infinitely anything else. I could be the very best Hector. I could be an enlightened Hector. Yeah. And there is no Nick, like I am forced to perceive Nick based on my past karma. He's also empty. Not Nikki. Nick is also empty. Nick is fun. Yeah. And this object, sometimes it refers to the object and sometimes it refers to the action. This action that seems to say, I hand something over and he receives it, also has no nature from its own side. It is also empty. There is no such action. This is hard for Westerners. This could be it. That we're forced to see it as an action of giving that will have a result of smiling. There is no nature from this thing to make him smile. There is no nature in the action that gives a result. That is also empty. That's all that means. That means that there is an emptiness of the giver, the receiver, and the act of giving, or sometimes they talk about the object. But in a truer sense, there is no causality, there is no karma from its own side. That's what they're really saying. Yeah? It gets a bit heady. Let it come in. Yeah? That is also true of any act of morality, any act of... Does it mean that there is no morality? Does it mean that there is no giving?
Karma is only associated with your intention of the actions.
No, 90%. But mostly, they say mostly, yeah? And they never answer to me what the bloody rest is. I mean, there's some stuff there, and they've given me some instruction, but not full instructions. So,
Yes, they're. Whatever you just asked.
what's your question? Forgot. What did I ask?
Is there morality? Is there.
Does this function? Do I give him a roast and it makes him happy? Is that a working thing?
Yes, it works.
Excellent. Yeah. So just because it's empty doesn't mean it doesn't work. And we'll talk again about what we can talk about now. What is Majjhimika? Majjhimika. What's Majjhimika mean? Majjhimika.
The sound of mindfulness.
Middle way. Middle way for what? Middle from navel gazing?
Things are absolute morally.
There's no extremes. Yeah, these two extremes are vanished in the middle way. The one that things don't exist at all. Just because the act of giving is empty does not mean that it doesn't do anything. Yeah? But that thing that we are forced to perceive it does is not by itself what it is. That would be the extreme of if giving is only
Materialism?
of materialism, of saying that things exist in the way they seem, that things are solidly, so they're self-existent, extreme. Yeah? Self-existently when I give it always gives a result like that. Not true. Yeah? So that is one extreme. The other extreme, so that extreme, how many out of all the beings, who catches the subway? Who caught the subway today? Someone? Yeah? All the beings you saw on the subway, right? Let's say there's 100. All those beings. Which of those two extremes would you say 99.9% of them have? Self-existence or nihilism that nothing exists?
The pure self-existence.
Yes, so most of us are afflicted by the extreme that says things exist truly, or things exist by themselves, or the way we perceive them, that's how they are. The act of giving is by itself, by nature, a good thing. No, I can give somebody a gun, that's a bad thing, you know?
I think I saw a 0.1%er today.
Huh?
I think I saw a 0.1%er today. Yeah, she just like was topless walking around here. I was like, what?
And doesn't that depend also on the person that's receiving? You know, like.
Well, no, they're having their own karma, and everyone witnessing the thing is pursuing their own karma. So I'm trying to simplify it. So let's go 99%, right, of the people we know that are lining up behind us on the bank or whatever, think that things are really what they seem to be. That's why we go to work. That's why we use money. That's why we eat food. That's why we do the things we do on this planet. We are there as well. The 1% or the 0.01%, that is if you're a badly educated Buddhist. If you got bad teaching on emptiness, or you've had a misconception of emptiness, or you haven't had a matured experience or understanding of emptiness intellectually, you then qualify to be the idiots that are on the point of 1%, me included, which has to go through this tension of, if they don't exist that way, then they can't exist at all. Which implies I can do the hell I want and nothing's got any consequence and it doesn't matter. That's also not true. Madhyamika means between those two cliffs, between those two precipices, that will, and the reason they're called cliffs of precipices, cliffs actually they're called, one of those words. Madhyamika, you've got Yuta and Metta. I think it's, they're the two extremes. Yuta is the extreme of
Things are real.
self-existent, is that right?
It's probably right because meta would probably be.
Meta would be the other. That's a good way to remember it, right? One or the other. I can't remember. I have to look it up. But it just means that if you want to be congruent with reality, you can't be sitting on either of those two extremes. Most of us are falling off the cliff of self-existence. Some of us that are studying this fall often, come to the edge of that cliff, they go, oh, then it mustn't exist at all, I can do the hell I want.
Wouldn't dependent arising keep you in the middle? Because there can be nothing with dependent arising, because there has to be something that doesn't cause it. And there can't be anything that is as you it may appear to you because it's being caused by another thing. So
Thank you, Tsongkhapa. In fact, that's one of his cures for the two extremes, is think constantly of dependent arising. We'll get to it. Thank you, Tsongkhapa. See?
You were right about Utah.
Thank you. Woo! Let's get some potatoes happening. Okay, here we go. Class 6. Renunciation. Okay, quickly now. Let's speed it up. Renunciation has two meanings in Tibetan. Give me what you can remember. You're leaving somewhere.
A worldly.
Leaving the
worldly life?
The worldly life, the home life, right? In one sense it means nirvana, but it's not what we're talking about. Yeah? Why nirvana? Because you're leaving this place, right? Samsara. But leaving the home life, meant coming out of the world. Leaving the home life means what?
getting away from things that keep you from being able to meditate.
Excellent. It's one of the prerequisites for seeing emptiness directly, for having a direct experience of this stuff. It's leaving the obsession we have with all the stuff that is completely impermanent, won't last, and will disappear, and that is your career, your look, your home, your blah, blah, blah. Being mentally attached to them is the implication here. So long as the majority of our mind is attached to those things, we already disqualify ourselves from being able to meditate and go into the path of the second. So renunciation is the entry to the first part of accumulation, which then we go into the second path, which is the path of preparation. Yeah. At that path, at the peak of that path of preparation, you have a peak experience just before going into the third path. And there is something that is vital and important to understand and conceptualize in order to get to that peak moment. So it's the most peak moment you will have as a Soso-Kewa, or as an ordinary being. You will have it at the end of the second path. But you can only have that if you're infused and understand this thing called Chi Jetra. Yeah? Quality and characteristics. General and specific. Yeah? So understanding how our minds group things that aren't naturally grouped. The universe is everything. Yeah? One big Chi. In order to make sense of it through this filter, which excludes already 1,000 million other possibilities, we begin to segment dark and light, galaxies and planets, and this and that, and change. Yeah, with that is that, that is that. And we can do that infinitum. The understanding that there is no division where we see division from its own side. That it is a conceptualizing of that and a habituating of that that forces us to have that. Understanding that will lead you to this peak thing called Supreme Dharma at the end of the third part, called, which is described as, someone describe it? You know what I'm talking about? Or I'm talking, so speak up.
Seeing this world as, experiencing this world for the first time as incorrect.
Pouring something to something.
Water and water.
No.
Non-duality.
That comes after.
I'm confused about what the question is. Are you talking about the moment right before you go
See emptiness. Yeah.
Like
Right.
when Geshe Michael was pouring the tea for his
Excellent. Thank you.
lama and he saw not a pot
Yeah.
anymore.
That moment is called Supreme Dharma.
Okay.
And it's called Supreme Dharma because it is the peak experience that you will have as a regular being before you go in and see emptiness directly, so long as you've been leading the home life, meditating, having some kind of generosity and purification. Right? That moment, that peak moment, is where you observe your mind doing chi jhara on things. And it doesn't have to be a pot, it could be an idea, it could be some, but you have a direct experience of what's actually dependent origination. You see how that thing that you call a pot dependently arose in dependence upon your labeling it that way and nothing else. That there is zero nature on that thing from its own side, informing you, dictating anything. You just saw how you created part of this world, which is what you were saying. And that leads you, like a domino effect, to go and see how you do it viscerally. You have the opposite of dependent origination, which is emptiness. You go sit down and you have a complete immersion, what's called water poured into water. So let me just make sure that I'm actual example, explain. So describe what you know about the direct experience of emptiness. And from now on, for me at least, we're going into the realm of science fiction. I can understand all these things and I can understand this intellectually. I can share these with you as my belief from meeting beings that have had these kinds of experiences from my karmic experience. But from now on, we're entering in a realm of, if that's true, then therefore this. If that's true, then therefore this, and I'm just taking instruction from what I believe to be truths. So, give me an experience of water poured into water. There's two parts to the path of seeing, which is the third path. One is water poured into water. Describe it.
Water. It's a water.
Direct perception.
It's a direct perception of emptiness. Can you have a perception that you're having a perception?
There's no concept of self.
Yeah, it's a non-thing. Yeah, so you can't sit there and begin to analyze it or describe it or point to it. That's why it's called water poured into water. Does it mean, here is some misconception, does it mean that you and emptiness are one?
It sure sounds like it. But
It sure sounds like it, but if you analyze it, you are a positive changing thing and emptiness is a negative non-changing thing. You can't be one.
you're not experiencing yourself that way. If you actually could, if you could actually sit for 20 minutes and not experience yourself as a changing thing, then you'd be in emptiness, right?
Is that, but then who's the person that remembers that conception?
You would be the person that remembers it afterwards, but you're also the
But while you're in it, it's water poured into water. So you can't have a description in this relative world. Why?
It's
Because not
There's
many
no-
people can relate to it, so why?
Because it's not a
not
relative.
describable.
It's not a relative thing. It's not of this world. It's not even of this realm.
It's a possibility. It's a possibility.
Putting words boxes it into something. It's like what we do to the universe. We grab the universe, all things, yeah, everything. We filter it through 6 tiny pinholes of experience, and we call the universe that. As soon as we call the universe that, it's not the universe. It's what we called it because we filtered it through our little pinholes.
It's almost like every type of language we have is used to describe that experience. Or if you were to say language as in art or math or Buddhism.
It's trying to describe that ultimate
You can use
everything.
it, yeah.
But they all fall short. If you just learn mathematics as the expression of the universe, and I was a poet, I wouldn't have a clue what was going on. You know, it's a language pointing to a thing. The language is not the thing. As soon as you give the direct experience of emptiness a whole description, it's not that anymore. Then after that, you began explaining it. You come down from the direct experience of emptiness, and you have a series of experiences that are grouped into 4 what?
Ascension.
The experiences you have for the 24 hours following your direct experience of emptiness
The Four Noble Truths?
are actually a direct experience of the 4 Noble Truths. You see what suffering is. You see your own death and so on. There's a whole list that I gave you about that. Yeah, you see what caused it, your ignorance, the lack of understanding of what you just saw. You see that it was imbued with selfishness, every action, even the best actions, even your best karmic actions. You see that there is actually, you actually saw a Dharmakaya, you see that it's possible to get out, and then you figured out what it will take to get out. You have that in group, it's 16 grouped into 4.
That's different than reading people's minds and all this stuff.
That happens in that thing. When you read people's mind, under what I was explaining, it's one of the times you realize that what causes suffering. That when you read people's mind, you see how imbued with ignorance every mind, every thought and action is. That they are lost, as you were. That they're trying to get things by taking, by cheating, by lying, and that can only produce lack of things, uncertainty, rather than what they're looking to get. You see that directly, you hear it in everybody, and it hurts. It's my understanding. Then we talked about, that would be the first bodhisattva bhumi, and we jumped all the way up to the 8th bodhisattva bhumi, where your mind removes the karma. You've built enough karma now in the path of habituation, the 4th path, to... Sorry, one thing I forgot to say when you come out of the direct experience of emptiness is that false reality reasserts itself. And the difference is that now you know you're not crazy and that this is upside down. You know that the world is lying to you. You know that the way things are appearing as self-existent aren't really what they are like. Up until that point, you believed them as much as I did, and as much as every social care worker. This is a flower, and the act of giving will produce something, and I'm Hector, and you and me. After that experience, you know that you are not what you appear, and I'm not what I appear, and the act of giving is embedded, it functions that way, and it's forcing me to believe that, and it forces itself into your mind like it was before, with all force, and you desperately look for a metaphor, and that's where the metaphor of the environment comes in. So as the old way of seeing things asserts itself, because it's an inertia, it's just another karma. You look for ways to remember what you just saw because you know that it will take you some time to habituate out, to clean out the forest so you can have daffodils. Because the forest has been planted and there's some massive trees and you've got to chop it. And it can take a lifetime, 7 lifetimes. Yeah, so at that time, you begin the path of habituation, and the bodhisattva bhumis start the ground. Bhumis mean grounds. These grounds start on the first, upon seeing emptiness directly, first bodhisattva bhumi. Second bodhisattva bhumi is sees perfections. Follow up to the 7th is the bhumi, or the ground of action, of skillful means, how to act in the world, and the 8th bodhisattva bhumi is when you have figured out how to plant the right karmas to perceive yourself no longer having ignorance afflict your mind. No longer mental afflictions. At that point, you're really free, but you're not quite a Buddha. And then we get into super sci-fi, 9th and 10th, where you actually flop into Buddhahood, and there's like all these milliseconds that you must perceive yourself achieving Buddhahood in this paradise and projecting over there to see yourself only come back here and then project it everywhere else. I didn't understand it. I tried as best as I could to share it last week. It's so far away from where I'm sitting. I have enough understanding, I think, that cause and effect can produce a Buddha experience. But at the 8th, you remove mental afflictions. You remove perceiving, you create the karmas to perceive yourself as no longer having an afflicted mind. Yeah? I won't be much longer, and then we can take a break, and then you can stay for a really long reading of the Dhammapada Sutra. The reason we talked about the 8th Bodhisattva Bhumi was because in the Dhammapada Sutra, the Buddha says to Subhuti, when I was in the path of habituation, and King Kalinga, do you remember this, started chopping off my fingers and toes and legs and arms. Did I see him as a self, a person, a being, or a life? Did I see him as a self-existent thing? Is what he was asking.
No.
And he said no, because he was on the 8th Bodhisattva Bhumi. Yeah? To see him that way meant that I would have had to yell at him or be angry at him, which would have produced more karma, but I didn't yell at him, I didn't get angry at him. And then the question was, did it hurt though? The Buddha. Before he was Buddha, in the previous life. Yeah, of course it hurt. It's the cleaning, it's chopping out the big trees in the forest. There's only 3 or 4 more big trees, but you have to work, and it has to produce its fruit. It's ripened. It's there. You have to live through the consequences of that. So yes, he hurt. No, he did not get angry. He saw that he was empty, that King Kalinga was empty, the chopping off was empty, and the pain was empty. And if he wanted to keep pain, and he wanted to meet more King Kalingas, he should yell at King Kalinga. If he wanted to keep that, if he wanted pain.
He told him, he says, in your next lifetime will be my favorite student.
My favorite student, yeah. So the point of that is that at that point, you no longer act in the world, even if someone's chopping your fingers to perpetuate ignorance. And then you're on your way out. Bum, bum, bum. What I wanted to talk about today is the idea of, I'll give you really quickly and then we'll have a break. The emptiness and the 2 extremes, I covered it just quickly. Chani Lama talks about that the perfection of wisdom is really referring to 4 things. You should know them just for your education. The natural perfection of wisdom is the same as natural nirvana, which is a synonym for perfection of wisdom is emptiness, just emptiness, yeah? So the idea of emptiness. The textual perfection of wisdom is what we described, which was the collection of texts that talk about emptiness, yeah? The path perfection of wisdom is the wisdom that a bodhisattva has when they're acting out their method in this world. That's the path perfection of wisdom. Meaning, as a bodhisattva who's not yet enlightened and doesn't really have perfection of wisdom, okay? This perfection of wisdom is a bodhisattva dedicated to following the steps of the path with their limited understanding of emptiness for the sake of all beings, because they have some kind of understanding, whatever level that is, that it will produce a good result. That is the path perfection of wisdom, the activity of the bodhisattva with the understanding of wisdom. And the resulting perfection of wisdom, what do you think that is? That's the actual perfection of wisdom, by the way. What would it be?
Seeing emptiness, right?
Buddhahood?
Say that again.
I was reading it. Omniscience.
Yeah, it's the Buddhist. I mean, that's it. So he's in the right perception of emptiness. So that's
I have the loop.
that's
Professional.
that's perfection wisdom. We talked about Madhyamika, middle way, being middle in between two extremes, self-existence and non-existence. Do you understand that? Yeah, that's why it's called middle way.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a line that you, if you can, write it down or remember. This should, Labonka Rinpoche says, this fourfold distinction can help you stay on the middle way. And he says that nothing exists naturally, that it's not that nothing exists at all. Everything exists merely by convention, that everything exists without existing naturally.
One more time.
Nothing exists naturally, but not that nothing exists at all. So nothing exists self-existently, meaning from its own side. And that doesn't mean that nothing exists at all, is what he's saying. Everything exists merely by convention. We are forced to experience things as they appear. That everything exists without existing naturally. The way they appear is the way we're experiencing, but that still doesn't mean they exist that way. But that's all.
Say the last line.
But everything exists without existing naturally. So the last part is everything exists merely by convention, that everything exists without existing naturally. Not long.
How long?
He's a Chinese man. So lastly, I want to talk a little bit about that idea we talked about, that how do things still function if they're empty, the act of giving, right? And that is the key distinction between Madhyamika Prasangika and all the other schools, if you're interested. But if you don't want to give them Buddhist school names, once you understand that, because things are empty, they function. It's not that because things are empty, then they can't function. It's that they only function because they don't have a nature to be that way by their own selves. If they were, everything would be a perpetual motion machine and nothing would ever change. As soon as it changes, it means it was brought about by something, and the highest view about how it's brought about is your conception, your projection. So the finite point, once you understand that, yeah, karma and emptiness are like this. Things work because they're empty. Once you understand that, then you start saying, oh, that could be anything, and that could be anything, and you could be anything, and I could be anything. And if I have the right courses, the right karma, you could be an angel, and you could be a Buddha, and you could be blinking your eyes and I would feel bliss, and blah, 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 blah. The fine point between the Madhyamika Prasangika and the other schools and all the other lower schools is that the other schools get stuck on, that's true because of the law of karma and because of emptiness. They're somehow fixed. They're somehow self-existently karma and self-existently emptiness. And Prasangikas say that's also empty. And it's okay to have a law of the universe or a law of existing beings that is empty. Emptiness is empty. It doesn't have a nature from its own side, and yet it functions. It's not that because it's empty, it doesn't function. And when you get that around your head, and that's what Tsongkhapa said Jason Kappa said in his 3 principal parts, see if I can pull it out. He said, right at the end, he goes, after you've come through all the parts, it was lovely. He goes, in addition, the appearance of things prevents the existence extreme, emptiness that of non-existence. So we read that in context and it would make sense.
Well,
Yeah.
how do things that are, how can emptiness have a function if it's empty? Function
No,
implies
because it's empty, the
self-existence.
function comes from karma. It's emptiness is not a thing; it's a lack of a thing, and they are existing here together. This apple has emptiness. The apple is a positive, changing thing. Emptiness is a negative, not changing thing. The fact that it's an apple, and it wasn't always an apple, and it won't become an apple in a second, means.
And it's only an apple to you.
And so, thank you. It's only an apple to me and not to other beings. It means that there's no appleness from that thing. That means its nature is not apple. Its nature is as many things as are observing it. It's its essence, which means it has no essence. It's empty of essence. Apple. Because it's empty, it's an apple, or a poison, or a.
So the function is only a result of the karma of the perceived.
For the being perceived. Yeah.
Fight it.
You know, made it really come sharp for me when you talked about the action as a thing too, and I was thinking, oh my god, if I had to smile every time somebody gave me a flower, everything would be broken.
There is no function. There is no. Yeah, exactly. So when you begin and you don't go crazy, and when you listen to the Dhammapada Sutra, forget all the rationalization you're doing in your head right now. Don't try and grasp it or cognize it or anything. Let to the most subtle part of your being just ingest this information. And naturally, whatever you've learned, whatever we've reviewed right now, it will stick like karma on emptiness onto some concepts that don't come from there. If my mum was reading this, she wouldn't get it the way you guys are doing. Let's have a 10-minute break, and then it will go for at least an hour. It might go for an hour and a half. Okay, so if you're committed to getting the Lung, which has come directly from Geshe Michael in 1997 to my ears, in my heart, I've tried to live it and breathe it. I also have, which is a little ritual, we should set up this place, a little ritual, make it nice and dark, light some incense, drink some water. We also printed as offerings to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 diamond Hector Sutras. Some were nicely finished, others we didn't have time to finish. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What did I say? 14. Some no fancy, but still red and lovely. Okay. And then you have it in your heart and hear it with the motivation that it can grow into the most magnificent understanding of how your world becomes. Yeah. So let's have a 10-minute break and then I'll be back. I'll set up.
Do you want it recorded?
Yeah, let's do it. So I'm putting that here so we can. If somebody needs to go,